And when I'm not stopping a Mercer Island street brawl, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
2021 is the year of the local election. From fire district commission to school board to city council, there are over 300 offices up for election this year in King County alone. With so many moving pieces, it's important to know what paperwork is due when. That's where King County Elections comes in. While we can't teach you how to campaign, we can teach you how to make your run official. Join us for one of our upcoming candidate workshops in Thursday, April 1st, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, April 17th, 10 a.m. to noon. Thursday, April 29th, 10 a.m. to noon. Join us in April to learn the ins and outs of becoming a candidate here in King County.
Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard, who is a mortgage loan originator with Cardinal Financial. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
We got the feeling now. Yeah.
R&B, soul, funk, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We give you all that and more on Star Time. Join me, Paul Pearson, for a 2-hour trip through the history of R&B. A new episode every week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Come and get the feeling on Star Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Your creative work might look a little different this year, but For Culture grants can still help you put your ideas in motion and share them with King County. Check this out. For Culture is now offering grants in 3 disciplines: arts, heritage, and historic preservation. Apply by April 28th. For more information, go to forculture.org. What's that date again? The deadline to apply for a For Culture grant is April 28th. Are you interested in getting your project financially supported? For Culture wants to support your cultural activities and share them with King County. Do you do creative work in the arts? For Culture is now offering grants in 3 disciplines: arts, heritage, and historic preservation. Apply by April 28th. I have some ideas. For more information, go to forculture.org. As a cultural funding agency for King County, For Culture wants to support your creative work. For more information, go to forculture.org.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world is your 24/7 digital media hub. Tune in at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and TuneIn apps.
You're listening to Heartbeat Radio. I'm your host, Cindi Bright. Heartbeat Radio is a conversation aimed to take the pulse of corporate America. Opportunities for people of color, we're getting lost in the shuffle of change. I'm that provocateur of change. The hearts of corporate America are addressed. Access and opportunities will be accelerated for all people. Through Heartbeat Radio, you will gain a deeper understanding of what is necessary for change.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Heartbeat Radio on Wednesday evening. We have a very different lineup scheduled for you for the month of April. Normally, we have focused a lot of our conversations on politics. The other side of the coin from politics is business. And business and politics are both influential in progress for Brown and Black people. I'm excited tonight to introduce the first company who has stepped up and who is willing to come in and have a candid conversation, an unfiltered conversation about progress for Brown and Black people. The company I'm going to introduce here in just a moment is Concentric, but before I introduce them in, there's a couple other things I want to share. I want to show you an Employers for Equity statement that was made and signed by most major CEOs here in the Seattle area that states that Washington Employers for Racial Equity unites corporate leaders from across the state, representing a cross-coalition of companies, large, small, local, and global. Challenge Seattle and Washington Roundtable have joined this list and are now in pursuit of access for Black people in jobs in corporate America. They've all signed up for this. So this is an exciting step, I believe, if we can move these statements beyond words. And as you know, I have an upcoming book that's coming out. It's due out here in the next 60 days, The Color of Courage, which is about racism in corporate America. So I'm looking forward for all of you to be able to read my own story, my journey of the issues that and obstacles I faced myself in corporate America. But without further ado, let me introduce in my guests, and then I'm going to show something else to you before we jump into talking. Let me first introduce the Chief Executive Officer of Concentric. Let's welcome Mike LeFever to Heartbeat Radio. We also have another member of his team, and that is J.M. I just lost his Maldonado. J.M. Maldonado. Welcome, J.M. Thank you both. This is a bold move, and so I appreciate that you both are coming on with me tonight to talk. Before we start talking, I want to show this clip of something that was recently in the news. So let's have a look at this.
The national debate over racism is also highlighting something else, the glaring inequalities in corporate America. Out of the 500 largest companies in this country, only 5 are run by Black CEOs. Melody Hobson is the co-CEO and president of Ariel Investments. She has pushed for more diversity in corporate America for years now. She is also on the board of JP Morgan Chase, Starbucks, and Quibi. And we should point out that Viacom CBS is an investor in Quibi. But we've got Melody joining us now. Let's go right to her. Melody, good morning. There's so much to talk about right now. Morning. And I think the thing we should begin with is that discrepancy between all of these corporations, including very big ones, coming out and supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. But then if they hold up a mirror, they don't have many executives of color in their upper reaches. Where is the disconnect there?
You point out an excellent point, and that is that words are cheap. They're talking about this issue. Now they have to back it up. This issue has been one where we've seen more lip service than elbow grease, in my opinion. And companies right now have to get their houses in order. People are going to hold these institutions accountable. And the place that it starts is the board of directors. The board of directors have to hold the leaders of these organizations accountable around these issues of diversity, which they state on their own are vital to the long-term success of the business.
So how would that work? You mentioned CEO pay packages potentially being tied to outcomes on diversity. How would you reward meeting those targets?
In corporate America, we know a lot about incentives, and you get what you incent. And so first and foremost, we need incentives around these issues of diversity, but we have to start with the math. I love the saying, math has no opinion. So what do we need to do? Count. We have to count and start with people. Look at people across your organization, across ethnicities, from the top to the bottom. What do the numbers look like? And you must set targets. We're also very used to targets. Next, look at your purchasing. Where do you do your business? Are you inclusive of minority businesses? And last, the third P, philanthropy. Where do you give your money? Now, we're hearing a lot about philanthropy right now, but to me, that's the tail that's wagging the dog. That's external. We need to go back internal. Again, fix your own house.
Yeah. Yeah. And you made a rise in corporate America. When you think about your own experiences, and if you could talk about it for us, are there obstacles or challenges that you came across that could be removed as we change these policies and open up corporate America to a broader set of workers?
This conversation could go on and on and on, but I thought it was a good intro to our conversation that we're going to have this evening. So again, welcome Mike and JM to the show here. Let's start off. I would love for you to tell our listeners about Concentric. Let's start talking about your business, what it is, who is Concentric, what is it that you guys do?
Oh, great. Yeah, I'll take that one. And then JM can hop on with me. Concentric is a risk consultancy and a global security company. We work in large areas from the high net worth families as well as large corporations, providing core security, business and residential security. We also provide embedded employees, analysts, and securities at different organizations. And we provide a unique cyber and privacy business that Jose-Miguel, JM, leads as a part of the organization. And we're in a unique space. We're a medium-sized business that has a premium service that we provide our customers and clients across the board. JM, anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's great. And thanks again, Cindi, for having us. Like Mike mentioned, I head up the cyber portion of the business. So that's taking care of, audits, information security policies, device hardening, and all that good stuff. So that's my role there.
Awesome. I wanted to make sure our listeners know who you are before we start diving into racial equity and diversity progress. Let me just ask you, why did you guys agree to come on the show with me? Like, I'm most curious because it's not easy for a CEO to come sit in front of a live audience and talk about a controversial topic that is out in the news every day. So why did you agree to come on with me tonight?
Cindi, great question. For me, it's been somewhat a lifelong commitment. Whether it was my background, my service, the portions where I've been in the Navy or through federal government, the experience and exposure to see different races, different cultures, different countries, and the expertise in it, and knowing that as managing diversity is hard because it is. Causes people think differently, and you have to do different ways in order to get larger because diversity means success. One of my favorite quotes that I use was a quote by George Patton. It says, "When two people are thinking alike, somebody's not thinking." And to me, that's a mark, yes, a diversity of thought, but that diversity of thought comes with the diversity across the board. Because with the diversity, in your organizations across everything, you get a better product and you get a better service, and you have to. And it's an important product for us and for our business.
Well, our country is, there is a racial reckoning happening right now. No one can dispute the fact that race is at the forefront of everything now, and companies have come forward. I showed that document to illustrate how all the companies are saying, yes, this is important. But in that video we saw, you get what you incent. And organizations have not been incentivized. I think my listeners all know I spent decades in as HR. And so if your focus is not there, or there is no investment into that, and I will also argue as a consultant, many organizations they don't have money to pay people. They don't have money to hire. They've never invested into this effort. And now we're at a reckoning. And so what does it feel like to you personally, not just as a CEO, but personally? How do you both feel about a racial reckoning happening in our country? JM, can we start with you?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And personally for me as a second generation Mexican American, it's very personal. And so anything that I can do along the way to help, give others access, opportunities, I'm all for it. I'm really proud of Mike and the way that he's leading, because like you said, a lot of companies, it's very popular right now to talk about diversity, but it's another thing to actually do it. So we're kind of at the beginning of that right now, and we're just going to try to do continual improvements to see if we can make a dent.
What are some of the things you guys are doing to make a dent?
Well, some of the things is recognizing we look at demographics, we see it. In fact, it was interesting before I was hired onto this. One of the first the very first conversation I had with our owner, Roderick Jones, was about diversity and about how we needed to change and how we needed to make that. And so, to your point and to the advertisement, this was a very guiding principle. This was definitely an integral point to leadership of the company and what he wanted to do as far as change. We look at different things to be able to be involved involved in other programs to be able to ensure success, and people are set up for success. We have instituted programs where we're looking at, even in our job descriptions, when we post job openings in the open market, we use a software program that enhances our ability to make sure we don't inadvertently use words or phrases that doesn't attract to a certain culture. It includes that diversity inclusion that we're looking for in the workforce. And we know we have a long way to go.
Yeah, I took a look at your job openings. I was just trying to get a sense on not just the type of jobs you have, but I also was looking for what it is specifically you're looking for. And something that really stood out to me that I'll raise to you is that you have tight requirements for people to come into particularly your senior analyst jobs. And you're requiring that people have master's degrees to come into those. And I'm watching what some of the other corporations are doing around their requirements. And they're coming to terms with the fact that they may not necessarily have to have that high level of education. Let's just be clear that a master's degree is $100,000, at least mine was. And so that's a barrier to entry for people, to attract people. So your pools go from this big to this big when you start tightening that up. And I just wondered, are you guys thinking along those lines, or are there creative ways you could think about the master's degree at some part of the journey of the employment as opposed to the gate to get in? So it was a thought that occurred to me when I looked at that.
Yeah, Cindi, that's a great question. And you do, because of the requirements, but in understanding that, from the background, when I was in the Navy, we were doing different programs when I was in charge of all the plans and policy for all 350,000 service members of the Navy. And this was one of the key things in making sure we had a diverse environment and we were inclusive in that. And to be able to reach out and to know that not everybody had the ability or maybe the exceptional upbringing to be able to have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees and so forth. And so we were looking at opportunities, depending on the scale of it, to open it up to a wider audience, because we realize that, but we want to be able to put back in the community what we can do or help train folks to be able to do that. I want to highlight what JM is doing with one of his programs in fields that aren't necessarily very diverse, but he's doing for a nonprofit. And I'll turn it over to JM to explain a little bit more. But your point is spot on. Is how do you look at that? And I think it's from our perspective of leadership, is understanding there is risk in that, but it is important that we need to open that venue and we need to take a look at the whole person and to be able to give opportunities for folks as well.
I want to let JM comment. Let me add something before JM does. I think what is particularly important, if you guys aren't following a company, I should charge them for me bringing this up on air because I've done it a couple of times now. But there is an interesting company. They're called Whole Story. And Whole Story's business model is on helping people qualify for employment based on their life, not on actual degrees. And so when you think about the fact that, brown and black people's earning power in jobs anyhow, black women are 63 cents to the dollar, Hispanic women is 53 cents to the dollar. The reality is that demographic is having to work 2 jobs to be able to be whole. And so therefore that they can't go to school. I didn't get my advanced degree until I was 50 years old. So there's something to be said about, how you start to manage that sort of requirement. JM, what did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point there because especially in the technology side and specifically cyber, it can be very expensive to get in. There's this debate of do you need certifications, which are thousands of dollars, or a degree, which again are thousands of dollars. So like Mike mentioned, there's a nonprofit that I work with. I'm on the board there. It's called Cybersecurity Nonprofit. And the whole entire goal is to provide cyber resources to all, and specifically focusing on those underrepresented groups. So for example, we've created a boot camp that is traditionally, thousands and thousands of dollars, maybe $10,000 for a Security Plus certification, specifically opening it up to the Black community and offering that to them. And not just that, not just giving them the certification and the training, but also giving them access to a pipeline, because it's one thing to say, okay, here's the training, but it's another thing to go a step further and use the collective resources that we have to help get them in the doorway, because getting that foot in the door is sometimes the hardest part.
Right.
And I've seen that, at a previous role at Rubica where I was leading HR, there were lots of people, Black and brown folks that did not know how to interview. They didn't know how to negotiate. they didn't know which route to go. And so there's a huge disparity there, between like what folks have in terms of resources and the, underrepresented groups. We also don't always have access to those resources.
Yes, and it helps to have someone like you who is a person of color who understands the community challenges that people have around access, and that's really important. And what you're describing, JM, is a mindset reset, if you will. And so one of the questions, I ask this a lot of politicians, I'm going to ask it of you, but what long-held assumptions do you have to start to explicitly reset now? Like, there's so many things that happen as rhythm of business that goes on as usual, but now here we are, and it can't continue that way. So I'm assuming you guys are having different conversations about other things that you need to reset expectations on. Are there other things that Concentric is doing that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, one of the things I think is key is, obviously is the awareness of understanding, the issue and doing that. And so we have a DEI group, but we're also training everyone across the company to understand, we're using diversity training to be able to have that awareness, to understand the necessary items and to create the environment that allows us to be able to have those difficult conversations, because people will come at it from very different views, and you can have some very difficult conversations. But in the beauty of that is understanding that at the end of these conversations, that diversity is the key to success, because it provides you not only the background, the understanding, and a wide breadth and spectrum of differences of opinions to be able to make your product and your services even better. So it's training, it's awareness, and it's creating that environment to be able to not permit those kind of the behaviors or break up some of those paradigms that we've had in the past about people and opportunity, and make it about the success of the organization and about the success of the mission. And it's about the success of people performing to be able to do that mission.
So can I paraphrase? And by paraphrasing, I'm going to ask a question in that. Okay. Do you guys put as much emphasis on to be as you do on to do in the business?
Explain that. Yeah.
Well, many organizations that I've been in, the focus, I'm going to be a little bit sarcastic as I say it, but the agenda will have all of the business things on it. And then there's a 10-minute segment to talk about diversity. And then we check that box and we move on. So, and we focus on the tangible to-dos of the things that are actually, that the business sees brings in money. And we don't focus on the to-be, which is how we have to become, our culture, our behaviors, our leadership. That's the to be. Yeah. Do you put as much emphasis there as you do on the actual tangible work that you want people to get done?
Cindi, I think from my perspective, obviously I'm going to have a slanted view as the CEO, but I would hope to think that we are in the to be, because like I said earlier, it is a passion for me. It should be representative. It should be who we are and who we represent and what our culture is. It was alluded to in the news clip about the culture of a company, and to be able to not only talk about it, but to live it. Because if you don't live your values or live your culture, you won't have anybody, because people won't believe that they're a part of an organization that sees the greater good in what you're able to do. So for me, I think it is to be. We know that, we have a long way to go. We have different issues to be able to go after, but the idea of recognizing it, progressing through it, and getting to that point to be able to offer that opportunity and create the environment that is the to be requirement to be representative of society today.
I appreciate the CEO's perspective on the to be. JM, I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And just in full candor, I would say that we're in the beginning awareness stage, because if you don't have an awareness and you don't have like a baseline, you really can't really go forward. And what we're doing, with the DEI team, the outside consultants, is we're just trying to establish that baseline so that we can say, okay, look, y'all, we're going to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because when you start talking about diversity and point out, okay, 70% of Concentric is Caucasian, okay, now we have to do something, so we can either, step up to the plate and say, okay, now that we know that, what are some things we can do? Like, to your point about recruiting, are there ways that we can open it up to create a wider pool? So I would agree that we're just in those beginning stages right now.
Okay, so you put your number out there. I wasn't going to ask you guys your number, but you put your number out there and said you're 70% white and Caucasian. You said. I used the David Chappelle, the whites, the blacks, the alphabet people. So that means 30% of your workforce is it diverse? They're all diverse, the rest of the 30%? And so I guess what was floating in my mind when you said that is, how do your brown and black employees feel right now? They are outnumbered. I'm going to make some assumptions. Tell me if I'm wrong. Probably most of your leadership is white. Is that correct? So how do your brown and black people feel inside of your organization? Do they talk to you about? Do they talk about it?
Yeah, so I can't speak for everyone, but for me, unfortunately, I'm kind of used to it, because I'm used to being in those situations where I'm a part of a smaller group of brown or black folks. But I will say that again, we're trying to establish that safe space where we can talk about it, and be able to share our feelings. Like, why don't we have more representation? Not just in black and brown, but in women, LGBTQ, in leadership. So for myself, I'm kind of used to it. I know that's really kind of awful to say, but being in the position that I'm in, what can I do to kind of help others along and affect change?
Let me ask my question different. There is a murder trial going on, and Black men are watching the way that they are treated in this country. Black people, including myself, live a daily life of belonging or not. And it's difficult for me, and I don't work in an organization where I'm surrounded by whiteness. And so I'm asking the question, I'm asking, are they really okay? And maybe that's rhetorical and something you just need to process. But I think it's an important question, because I think most of us would like to think, we have a question coming in from a listener here. Let me finish. Leave that up there, please, Daniel, for a second. Most of us would like to think others are doing okay, but we mostly hide how we're doing when we're inside of organizations, because we can't risk showing that. We'll talk more about that in the second half. Let's just get to this question. How many women do you have in tech roles or roles outside of the HR? G&A. That's a great question, because most of the time women are in the back office jobs, the G&A, HR, legal, marketing, and don't get to the P&L side of the business. And so that's continuing to keep earning power and all those things. Can one of you answer that question?
Sure. At corporate, like JM said, unfortunately, right now at corporate, it's 75% white. And in gender, we're doing well in gender diversity at corporate level. In fact, 56% of the corporate level is female, and only 43% are male at the corporate level. And the corporate for us is about 60 people. Company-wide, with our embedded employees and folks supporting both family offices and corporations across, it's the diversity is probably about 68% is white, with the population of 200, and the rest 32% diverse background. And there the gender diversity flips a little, maybe probably because of the security business, and the males represent 65% company-wide at that 200. So to answer that question, we do have diverse folks across the board in our what we call future operations or business development. We have 2 women there. or in fact, correction, 3 that does contracts, does our branding and marketing and servicing. In our current operations, we have leadership in the security areas as a security director in charge of our embedded employee program. Our director there is a female as well. And we have females across the organization in both our investigations business that we do. And then we do have our CFO as a female, and we have several women there and several women in the HR department. I think we're doing pretty well corporately across for women in diversity across the ranks and across the services.
So we'll pick that back up. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about the women issue. And I have 2 issues that were in the paper today I'm going to bring up with you guys, particularly around women. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Half that up in Saks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Celebrating 4 years of broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the interest of South Seattle and surrounding communities. Hey, it's Tony B, and yes, I'm excited to share with you that April 1st is our birthday. This one is our 4th of amplifying the diverse voices in our communities, broadcasting community events, providing award-winning instructional classes to youth and adults, supporting our music communities in all genres and forms, hosting critical conversations, and making sure that we are who you are. 2020 provided us with the opportunities to meet the needs of our communities. Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to have provided our communities with the most comprehensive coverage of how the coronavirus did and continues to impact our communities. And so, for our birthday, on behalf of our amazing staff, volunteers, and show hosts, to all of our contributors, supporters, listeners, and viewers, thank you. Thank you for your support and patience while we were trying to figure out this internet and broadcasting media thing 4 years ago. Thank you to our youth students who took our courses in interdisciplinaries like communication, journalism, multimedia, math and coding, adult digital literacy, social media analytics, beat making, film, photography, and of course, broadcast. Thank you for staying with us even when we made mistakes. You know that when we provide opportunities for you to share your voice, thoughts, issues, concerns, and talents, then we look at that as growing together. As the African proverb says, that is how we will go far. We have grown, and you've grown with us. We have over 80 shows hosted or produced by members of our communities. And all of this during a pandemic. But that is one reason why we do exist. As a true grassroots organization that started out broadcasting out of a study room in the Columbia City Library, we formed alliances with groups like the HCAACD, worked with city government, private developers, and a variety of arts organizations to promote sustainable art space, land acquisition, and ownership for arts organizations. I'm sure many were shocked when we leased 3 properties in the heart of Columbia City, providing our community members with business opportunities for a hair salon, barbershop, recording studio, rental hall, youth concert and celebration space, artist residency, and an art gallery, among the other multiple uses. We are continuing that growth as we move towards ownership of property in the Central District and in land acquisition in South Seattle's Columbia City to preserve the historical and cultural artistic integrity of our communities and ensure that independent voices continue to be heard. So for those of you who have found out about us recently, we thank you on our birthday for allowing us to broadcast our community-created content however and wherever you listen and watch. If you'd like to make a birthday donation to Rainier Avenue Radio, it would be much appreciated. Yes, times are tough, so any amount would be greatly appreciated. You will see the results. Here's how you can donate. You can go to our website at RainierAvenueRadio.world and go to the donate page. You can Venmo at Rainier Avenue Radio. You can send a check to Rainier Avenue Radio, P.O. Box 18774, Seattle, Washington, 98118. You can donate to Shunpike, which is our fiscal agent. Just indicate that your contribution is for Rainier Avenue Radio. Shunpike is the 501c3 nonprofit agency that provides independent art groups like ours in Washington State services, resources, and opportunities. Once again, happy birthday to us at Rainier Avenue Radio coroporate.world. We are your community radio station. We will continue to provide you with community-created content, broadcast live from our communities, and of course, we'll bring you high school sports like nobody else can. Join us in celebration. Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Tax, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.
Welcome back to Heartbeat Radio. I'm the host, Cindi Bright. This evening, we are having a very different conversation. Well, we have a different group of people. We're still talking about advancement of brown and black people. We have Concentric on. We have the CEO of Concentric, Mike LeFever, and we have J.M. Maldonado, a program manager there. And we were just getting into the women issues right before the break. That always happens where 1 minute before we go on break, we start talking about something really interesting. I do want to come back to that. A couple things. Mike, what you were describing, and without me knowing your full structure of your business, I did hear you do have some women in leadership roles. I heard HR, I heard your CFO. Those are still back office roles, and they are valuable. I don't want to dismiss that. I do want to bring to the forefront, though, just from my own experience of even having gone through a development program at the University of Washington to put women on boards of directors, which is where we need to get women and women of color. We've got to get them on the business side where they have control over profit and loss. And so is that something on your radar?
It very much is. And in fact, we're very proud that one of our board members, we have with the executive chairman, 2 board members, and board member was a former COO and recently the CEO of Rubica that was
we all know Francis.
Was Fran doing. It's our board member, and that helps us quite a bit, but also in that endeavor to be able to expand that. And we realize that is an issue that we need to work on as well.
Yes. There were 2 things in the news today. You know, I mean, this is just what I care about. So I have all these alerts that come in. You're welcome for asking that question, Joy. 2 articles I picked up today I read, and I just thought, wow. One was in the New York Times. The subject of it was, after working at Google, I'll never let myself love a job again. And it's a powerful article about a woman and what happened to her in the workplace. I encourage you and our listeners to read it. Also, another really interesting article was, do you guys know who Brooke Baldwin is, the commentator on CNN? I don't know if you watch CNN. Well, she's leaving. She had announced her departure about a month ago, but she talked about her whole, for 10 years, she worked there in this whole male-dominated industry. And let's just be real. You guys said you didn't want to shy away from candid conversation. Every industry, the leadership is full of white men. And so what do you feel we need to do in order to change the makeup of top positions, and by that I mean women who have access and power, not just a CFO title, people who have access and power? What do we need to do? What does Concentric need to do to change its outcomes?
Yeah, I think from my perspective is we need to create, and I'd like to think we are, is creating an environment for that success, to be able to, whatever the nature is, to be able to have that opportunity to talk freely, but also to be able to be on the development side, to be able to reach out to diverse populations and to women in technology and in leadership companies. I've seen it across the board. When I was in the Navy, one of the things I was charged with was bringing women into combat, women on ships, women in submarines, LBGT community, as well as diversifying our CEO network, essentially the admirals and the senior executives of the Navy. And it's a very difficult problem to be able to do it, but you have to start somewhere, and you have to start moving it now. And I think that's the key, is that we have to start developing, nurturing, training, educating, and getting the experience of good qualified individuals to be able to compete for those roles at the CEO level.
Well, the word that you used that I liked was moving. And let me say something different.
Okay.
In my decades of doing HR, I heard CEOs speak very similar to you, Mike.
Okay.
They wanted to hire, they wanted to develop. Those are great and admirable things to do. But the return on that was so small in my lens on women actually advancing based on that kind of a strategy. And so I'm coming at this very different now from bold moves, right? And so you use the word move. Who or what are you willing to move aside inside of your organization now to start progressing people? Like that roadmap that I showed to start the show off with, I remember being asked feedback about it, and they said they put a 10-year roadmap, and they asked me what did I think, and I said people are being killed in the streets every day. We don't have 10 years to wait. And so I'm saying that again from the lead and develop and grow. It's bold moves that we just need to start making to make that happen now and let the dominoes start to fall. And so what's your reaction to me saying that? What's going through your mind as I say something like that?
No, I think it's very powerful because it is something that you have to contend with. And, when you think about people in leadership and organizational roles, you look at their lifespan about a 2 to 3 year period being in that leadership role. And part of the success, I think, is building that succession plan. Who is that network of people? When I was working in the personnel business in the Navy, we would look at the future capabilities. Where do we go and look for people that have the qualities that we're looking for to be able to lead in these environments, and start building that now, start building the relationships, start building the context, and start building the interest in appealing to those people to be able to take over the key leadership jobs in the company. And that's one of the things I want to be able to do is start building that, or doing now is building that succession plan, because we know, like I said, about 3 years for most folks. That's kind of what I was used to in some organizations, as well as the, unforeseen circumstances that someone leaves or someone can no longer perform in that duty. Where's that bench that you have? And you need to start grooming that bench now, as of today, to be able to groom who the successors are going to be for the company and having that bench.
JM, do you have thoughts about this?
Yeah, no, I think it really comes down to, like you said, developing talent and trying to accelerate that. There was a previous question where someone asked, what is the makeup of the tech side? So it's split. There's a man and a woman. But that particular woman, Ash, I feel like that's a great example, because maybe just over a little bit a year ago, she was hired on at Rubica with little experience in the tech field. And at this point now, she's doing pen testing, cyber audits, all that good stuff. But I think emphasis has to be placed on really accelerating that development of people for the future leaders. If I can use a baseball analogy, it's like going, like a baseball scout, trying to look in different resources and trying to accelerate them up into the big leagues. So I would liken it to that.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, there was a question that popped up while they were speaking that I didn't cut to. Let's see, there are folks who have been in companies for a long time that need mentoring and promotion paths. Is that, in fact, I agree with that, Joy. Thanks for asking that. Joy is actually my co-host on this show every week usually, so I'm glad she's watching because we engage in these conversations with the political people. Do you have people in your organization that need nurturing and developing? You do.
Yeah. Oh, Cindi, without a doubt. I think everybody does. I need it. I need coaching. I need mentoring as well. And I've had it throughout my career. And I take that very personally, because I think as leaders, if you don't mentor and don't develop the next generation, you're behind. Your performance or your evaluation or your metrics or whatever, there's almost a metric that should be, after you leave, have you set up the organization for success? And have you given the people the right tools to be able to succeed? When I look at any failures with the company or individuals or products, I look to myself first. And what have I done? Have I given that person enough guidance? Did I give them the right tools? Did I give them the right intent? Did I ensure that they were going to set up for success? And if not, shame on me. And that's a leadership's role. But a leadership's role is also the mentor, because we're not here forever. And so we need to mentor that next generation that's going to take the organization even to a better spot. So to me, it's very passionate about having mentors as well as coaches in your organization to be able to help people succeed, know where they're headed, and how they get there.
Let me ask you guys this question. Thank you, JM, for telling your story. Let me ask you this question. Again, you guys know my personality now, and it's tame tonight, is it not, compared to meetings I've had with you? But what if I'm the bold, progressive, forward-looking, and in my years, there's always something somebody's going to need developing on, and it's just the never-ending thing. Like, bold moves, in my opinion, is to create the parachute instead of the process. And what I mean by that is, instead of the typical succession planning processes and development and all that, if an organization develops the parachute to not let somebody fail, why not put them in now? The best way to learn is to have your 2 feet in the seat. And so why can't business start to think different about how we get people ahead? If someone has got, 2 or 3 basic elements, they demonstrate leadership capacity, they have critical thinking skills, they have empathy, they meet those 3 criteria, you put them in that seat, and then you set up the system so that they do not fail, as opposed to looking at it from the other way around, which is to build the 3 years up, because we're never going to get there that way. Or at least it's a painfully slow process. So is that something you would consider or think about?
JM, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, especially in the tech side, that's kind of my motto, because throwing them in the deep end, I think that's a great way to learn. And to your point about once they're in there, making sure that they don't fail and setting them up for success, I am all for that. And especially in the tech side where, it's very competitive. A lot of people want to get into it, especially cyber. It's cool. It's sexy. Everyone talks about it like it's this great job, and it is. But there are barriers, and I'm of the mindset that if, to your point, do they have a few of those core competencies or basic, disciplines? Absolutely, let's give it a shot, because why not? What do we have to lose?
I agree with that, and I think that when my book comes out, some people's hair is going to be standing up on the back of their neck, because I am calling out. I just think HR has failed miserably. It is failing people. In fact, that's a whole nother conversation, but we have to do some things radically different to have different outcomes. The way that things have been traditionally done has not served women, and it certainly has not served brown and black people. And so, I'm just an advocate to start thinking very different, and instead of trying to get the performance improvement plan out there to coach them on what they're doing wrong, if we come at it from the perspective of we won't let them fail. And there's a whole myriad of things that will start to happen when you make decisions like that. And let me be candid, like other people, the people who are normally afforded those opportunities for those roles are not historically the people that are being told no. And so when you start to bring brown and black people into leadership positions and then putting a support system underneath them, it's going to create a whole nother animal all in itself in the business, because people are going to look at that the same way they look at brown and black people out in the world. And so these are I will call it organizational chaos that I think a lot of organizations are going to start heading into, because they will not make progress with the traditional methods of acceleration. So I really like, JM, you use the term accelerated, and that is a very necessary word in today's world, that you have to accelerate these efforts.
Yeah.
Yes,
for sure.
What are your thoughts? Do you feel like, based on my kind of radical thinking on progression of people and the issues that it could create, are you prepared for that kind of a decision and or fallout? Is that something real that you would entertain? Or I know it's on a radio show and I'm just throwing out an idea. It's just that I don't expect you to do it. I'm just curious with leaders because I'm trying to see, what things are they willing to try, or how far, wide, and deep are they willing to go to make this progress?
Yeah, Cindi, I think it's a great question because you have to take risks. And in any leadership, you have to take risks, and a lot of times that's what it takes, bold moves to be able to move the needle when it needs to be done. And so there's two thoughts that you evoked. I still believe it's important, and we had a process, as you remember from your military as well, is we call it the left seat, right seat. To progress, to make sure that individual is set up for success. And that's what you want to ensure when you put people in those positions. But you also realize that it is going to be risky, but there is risk in that. But that's, my troops used to say, sir, that's what you get paid the big bucks for. But it is what you need to do to be able to move the needle, to be able to see the progress and to demonstrate your commitment to those.
And there's now increased risks of not making moves. I don't know if you followed what the Wells Fargo CEO did and said. Did you guys catch? I'll get to that, Joy. But the Wells Fargo CEO publicly said, we can't find Black talent, and millions of Black people slashed back at him because that is an error. I would argue, I can tell you my own stories of trying to do business with Wells Fargo. Just trying to get in their door is a nightmare. They don't have networks of brown and Black people. They don't know how to even tap into networks of brown and Black people. And, I've asked, which HBCUs do you recruit from? And they all look at me like I have three eyes, like they never even heard of Black colleges and universities. And then they go make national statements that we can't find Black talent, right? That's, but he has also paid out, I think the number was like $175 million in pending lawsuits because, the environment in financial services, of which I'm from, and the lack of diversity is going to cost. So there is risk no matter how you cut it. And now you see the racial reckoning happening where people are no longer tolerating injustices and not having access to wealth, the ability to accrue wealth. And wealth is accrued middle management and up, where your equity in the company is and where people can start to get, larger chunks of cash. And so this movement is happening fast. It's happening really fast.
Yeah. My exposure is I've been wonderfully exposed to the folks, particularly in the military, and then also in the civilian. That comment by the Wells Fargo is just outrageous. Roommates and colleagues that served at the 3- and 4-star level, male and female in the Navy, that have been just tremendous officers and tremendous leaders. And then also to your point, when we were looking at how do we change that diversity in the flag corps or the CEO structure of the Navy, was we had to do things then about HBCUs and so forth for recruiting, to put in STEM programs, to be able to look at opportunities to build that base, to build a bigger pool of people and resources to be able to filter and to be able to be put in that selection to be in leadership roles across not only government, but also the civilian sector.
Mike, is this is a personal question, so you can not answer it. But is or any of your leadership team, is your annual compensation tied to diversity progress?
Well, it's funny, Cindi, we're just starting. In fact, this is the first year we're going to be doing appraisals and objectives. And in that, in each of the goals for my leadership team is, there are the typical goals, but of 4 of them, the 4th one or the first one, however you look at it, is about leadership and about exuding the culture of our company and what we believe in, and diversity and inclusion is one of the key items. And so I use that, and that's probably the most subjective of the objectives, not following the SMART rules or whatever, but it is an appraisal of what these people are going to do and how they exhibit the values of what we want to espouse as a company.
Yeah, I read that as a yes when you're saying that. Let me emphasize a couple things since you're I'm sure many of your organization is watching this show, as well as the listeners who tune into this, that the hiring of brown and black people means nothing if you don't address the ecosystem of what you're bringing them into. And so I'm hoping, I know that you engaged with someone else to help you with this work, but I'm hopeful that you are tackling systems, because the door will start to do this if you're not prepared for people who are non-white and thinking different. And if the majority of your leadership are white people, it's going to be a very difficult journey to bring one person here and one person there and one person there. It's just not going to be a possible good outcome. JM, your head nodding was pretty strong. So you must, obviously, I'm hitting a chord. This makes sense to you, what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And it reminds me of a point you made earlier about that Wells Fargo comment. Where are they looking? Because, if you're looking at just LinkedIn, we had a conversation about this on a previous call when I was recruiting for tech roles, like 90% Caucasian dudes. So are they just fishing in the same pond over and over and saying, well, we tried, we're not getting any diverse candidates? They need to think about other, fishing in other ponds, trying other places to source those brown and black folks. So I think, yeah.
Let me comment, JM, on that, because I don't know if you're aware, but LinkedIn and Facebook, honest to God, I wouldn't use Facebook if it's just that the show is run off of Facebook. Otherwise, I wouldn't. But know that many brown and black people have left LinkedIn because LinkedIn is silencing black voices. And so what is happening is these structures are not welcoming brown and black people. And so the traditional sourcing methods, that's not where you're going to find talent. You're going to have to find talent through your own personal networks, through your own engagement in the communities, through your own involvement where people know who you are, what you stand for, as opposed to putting our names in a hat to be the diversity hire and then being the token hire in the company, of which everybody knows that we're a diversity hire. And so they make our lives hell around us because they don't want us there anyhow. That's the life cycle of Black women, at least particularly I can speak to. So food for thought. What other mechanisms do you have? We've got just a couple minutes left before our next show will kick in. What are some of the final thoughts that you want to leave our listeners, recognizing you guys are coming back in the fall, and I can't wait to see what progresses between now and the next session we have, because I'm going to be asking. But what final thoughts do you want to share with our listeners about your leading this change, like what you believe is necessary, what you think other leaders should do to follow in your footsteps? Do you have any thoughts that you want to leave?
Great. JM, you want to lead and then I'll follow?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, like I mentioned previously, just making sure that we have a safe space and that people know that they're going to be getting uncomfortable, that we establish and just call it what it is. If we are not diverse enough, if we don't have enough representation of women or Black, brown folks, then we need to do something about it. And we need to be bold with those actions and say, okay, we're not going to do it in 10 years. Okay, let's say 6 months, maybe a year. Set some really accelerated goals. But I think that would be a good place to start. So Mike, go for it.
All right.
Likewise, Cindi, I would say strongly encourage as leaders is to create that environment to be able to do that, whether it's that team room environment where that, diversity of thought, freedom of speech, to be able to come out there and everybody can contribute, no matter how big and small, but to understand that diversity is key to our success. And it's integral to how we would think as a company. And we're actually seeing it also in some of the proposals we're getting from some of the companies that we're supporting for embedded programs, embedded employee programs, of what are we doing and what help can we provide them and their DEI in hiring for their folks as well as contractor support.
Awesome.
So I'm intrigued by it.
Oh, this was awesome. Mike, both you and JM, quick hour, fastest hour of the day. Thank you both for joining and engaging in this conversation. I look forward to, our listeners are telling you it's great information. I look forward to talking to you in the fall and seeing where things progress. To our listeners tonight, thank you for joining and participating in this conversation. Next up, we have an encore presentation about the coronavirus special. Thank you all for joining Heartbeat, and I'll see you all next week.
Thanks so much, Cindy.
Black businesses, assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.